Okay, confession time. My name is Luke. Hi, and I like the Mafia series. Okay, sorry to say, deal with it. Come at me. I don't care. I like these games. What do you want from me? Don't get me wrong, they are far from perfect. I wouldn't call them masterpieces or anything like that, but Mafia as a franchise has some of the most memorable characters and stories and voice acting performances and cinematics of any franchise that I can think of. I just love the stories and environmental storytelling and everything within these games. I love it. Every Christmas, I still boot up Mafia 2 and just drive through the city, through like the snowy streets with that like 1940s music vibe. Like I eat it up. I don't know what it is. I just love these games in a lot of ways, even if I have lots of problems with them at the same time. And so it'll come as no surprise to you that I was very excited when it was confirmed that Mafia The Old Country was coming out this year. Because in a lot of ways, this game represents a chance for Hangar 13, the studio, to show everybody we still got it, because they have had a rough decade or so. And I'm gonna outline a lot of this in broad strokes for you over the course of this video, but this, in a lot of ways, is like their last chance to really show that they deserve to make their own stuff and not just be a support studio. And so I'm rooting for them, but I still wanna make this video because there are a lot of good things that point in the direction of Mafia The Old Country being awesome and just an amazing game, but there's also a lot of like little bitty red flags, nothing crazy or egregious, but like things you should be aware of, such as like pretty clear visual downgrades, or even if we're being really generous, changes compared to the original teaser trailer versus what's been shown off in the last week or two from the IGN gameplay reveal, for example. And other things like allegations of performance troubles with like frame drops in the gameplay that they showed and all of that. So I want to outline this for you as clearly as I can and offer a skeptical look at the game, which just means to put forward all of the evidence for and against and let you make up your own mind judging it, okay? I'm doing this as a fan of Mafia, but I'm doing this also because I don't want to get overhyped to the point where I have unrealistic expectations. And I go into this game and maybe it's a solid like B- game or even C+ game or whatever it is. But if I was expecting an A+++, I'm still going to be disappointed. Even though it was never probably going to be that, I'm still going to be disappointed because my expectations were so out of whack. Whereas if you go into it understanding what you're going to get, you can actually like still enjoy a less like masterpiece type game, it's kind of like if you go to like, I don't know, Smash Burger or In-N-Out or something like that. You order the burger, you need to know that you're getting a fast food burger. Like it's gonna be good, you're gonna enjoy it, you're gonna be glad that you ordered it. But if you're expecting like some sort of insane Gordon Ramsay thing that's super, farm to table, still mooing and everything, you're gonna be disappointed because your expectations were so crazy out of whack. What you got was not bad, it's just different. And it's maybe not on paper as premier or whatever, but you can still enjoy it. And that's where I think we need to be with Mafia, because I think there's a lot of good things, and I think it's going to be like a really great In-N-Out burger or a burger or whatever, but it's not going to be like this masterpiece filet mignon kind of thing. Like it's going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be like a 97 on Metacritic. Okay. Shocker. I know, but I still think it's worth checking out. So we'll go through this. Just don't hate me for being the messenger of some of these things. Okay. Also, I don't have any sponsor or anything for this video, so just subscribe if you like the video, or don't. I'm not your dad. I can't make you do anything. I'm just glad you're here. Thanks for watching. Let's get into it. So quick little rundown on Mafia in case you're not at all familiar with the franchise. This goes back like 2 decades. The first game was released all the way back in 2002. And fun fact, Mafia, the original game, as you can see here, ooh, look at them graphics. Somehow the plus button made it even smaller. How does that work? What the hell? Anyway, it was a groundbreaking game for the time. It very much looks like a 2002 video game, but seriously, this game was one of the very first to prioritize a cinematic style of storytelling within a third-person game like this, and the writing was really, really great. And while it wasn't a Grand Theft Auto style game, it was very, very ambitious for the time, and it did a great job. And fun fact, one of the co-directors on the game is a guy named Daniel Vavra, and you may recognize Daniel because Daniel actually went on to co-found a studio called Warhorse. And if you don't know Warhorse, they make Kingdom Come Deliverance and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So if you like KCD2, the other game that's in the Game of the Year contention for this year, it's actually from one of the guys that started the Mafia franchise. So there you go. Fun little fact for you. I don't know what you're going to do with that information, but I guess if you're ever at gaming trivia, now you'll have that little tidbit. So you're welcome. After Mafia 1 in 2002, we would eventually get Mafia 2 in 2010, which was a fantastic game in many, many ways, but it really started to showcase one of the problems with the Mafia franchise that would continue to rear its ugly head even in the third game as well. And that is just simply that these games have open worlds that the story is set within, but the open world is never that engaging or alive or interesting. Like Mafia has great stories, but it doesn't have great open worlds, even though they still give you an open world to drive around and free roam in and do these like delivery missions in driving through the city. So as a result, like the game has a lot of good stuff, but because of how they frame it and they present you with this big open world that's just not that interesting, it still feels lacking, you know? And it's a problem Mafia games have had forever. Even the first game had it with the definitive edition, kind of showcasing it again through a fresh perspective. And the third game certainly had it as well, which I guess we should also touch on. Mafia 3 released in 2016 to pretty abysmal reception. Like seriously, this game, oh baby. I'm sure we've all seen the Krabby Cat video at this point that he did showcasing a bunch of the glitches and bugs the game had when it launched. It was a mess, for lack of a better term. To put it simply, the game was just rushed. It was not ready for prime time. It was pretty broken. And as a result, it got panned in the media, ending up with a Metacritic score somewhere in the high 60s to low 60s, depending on the platform. Though interestingly enough, the sales for the game were not actually that terrible. Like you would think the game was just a colossal flop. And we've heard stories of flops nowadays where like the game only sells 200,000 copies or 500,000 copies or something. And that's a flop, you know, it's losing a crap ton of money. But Mafia 3 was actually a pretty decent seller despite the reviews. And I don't know if this was just like 2016 era gaming or whatever. People were more willing to spend money on AAA stuff. I don't know. But what I do know is that just a little under a month after the game launched, Take-Two Interactive came forward and said that they had shipped 4.5 million units in the first week. These are full price copies in the first week, which set a new launch record for 2K games. What? Like, even though it reviewed pretty terribly, it still broke sales records for them. Like, I think that was just a 2016 thing where people are like, okay, yeah, but IGN's stupid, so I'm going to buy it anyways at full price. And, you know, they ended up being disappointed. But the game still sold pretty decently. By February of 2017, they had gotten it up to 5 million copies. So it seems like the tail definitely was not there. Word of mouth was really bad. So it sold a bunch at launch. People saw it was bad and then told their friends not to buy it. But after just a few more years, they had sold 7 million total copies. It's interesting because they phrased it on this earnings call as having sold 7 million copies, not like downloaded through free promotions or PlayStation Plus or whatever was going on at the time that this earnings call was going on. Because I know they gave it away for free for a while, but they apparently were not counting those free copies in this 7 million number. But either way, it didn't sell abysmally bad despite reviewing really, really bad, which is just a fun little factoid about Mafia 3. Horribly received, but apparently it didn't do too horribly. I don't know. I guess it showcases the power of the Mafia franchise. People really like these games. But regardless of how many units the game actually sold, it was pretty clear that 2K was not interested in Hangar 13 getting a bunch more money for a sequel or something else that was a big budget item. They just didn't trust them anymore. They might have thought, yeah, Mafia 3 sold well because it was a like pretty graphically impressive game, at least in the cutscenes and promotional stuff, and Mafia had a lot of good like brand recognition at the time, and so maybe they were like, we burned all the goodwill with Mafia 3, let's just move on and not worry about it, because maybe Mafia 4 is not received well. I'm not sure, but what I do know is that just a little while later, after some like behind the scenes shenanigans. In February of 2018, they hit them with sizable layoffs. They were working actually on a pitch for a game where you fight to music, which sounds eerily similar to Hi-Fi Rush, and another game, Harmonix. They were working on another game called Chroma also, which was going to be similar. And I don't know, I just find it interesting that at the same time that Hi-Fi Rush was probably being greenlit, there were two other studios that were pitching ideas for a game where you fight to like the beat of music playing in the soundtrack. It's just interesting to me. I find that parallel thinking stuff funny. But anyway, they continued on. As you can see, in 2019, they were working as a support studio for Gearbox and doing a bunch of Borderlands stuff. In May of 2020, they revealed what they had been spending a lot of time on, which was Mafia Trilogy, where they did a remake of the first game, Definitive Edition, which was fantastic. I love this dearly. It is a fantastic recreation we'll touch on again in just a second. They also remastered the second game with the help of D3T, a separate team entirely. And for good measure, they tossed in a complete edition of Mafia 3 with all of the DLC and story packs and everything. And they sold them off individually, or you could buy them as a big bundle if you wanted to. And that was that. Also, to their credit, original owners of Mafia 2 and Mafia 3 did get their editions upgraded to these remastered versions at no additional cost, just for free and for fun. So shout out to Hangar 13 and 2K for doing that. That was cool. But during this same time, they were working on a separate new IP that was going to be called Volt, or at least that was the code name. But in November of 2021, it was announced that 2K had shuttered that and shut it down, and that project was canceled. So they'd been working for a few years while they did the Mafia stuff on a separate original IP that got shut down. In fact, Take-Two specifically called out the amount of money they burned on this, which I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. It was reported from Bloomberg actually that they burned $53 million on this project that went nowhere. They just decided, nope, it's not looking like it's going to work, and they cut it. And who knows what this game would have been. In my experience, a lot of companies will not cancel stuff they think they can make a lot of money with. So if they chose to just take a $53 million loss, the odds are decently high that it's because it wasn't very good. Like, I hate to be that guy, but like a lot of the time with like The Last of Us Online, if there was some way that they could make a lot of money from that game, even in like a small spurt, they probably would have put it out. There was something about that game where they just were like, it's not even worth the risk. It's going to cost us too much money to even try, so just don't bother. So I don't know. I'm interested in what this would have been like. Maybe one day we'll find out more, but who knows what this game would have been. We probably won't ever know super clearly at this point, but yeah, that got canceled. And then just months later, in May of 2022, they suffered another round of layoffs at all of their locations around the world. And this is crazy. The team in Novato, I'm not sure, California, appears to have been particularly affected, with almost 50 of the 87 staff let go. And by comparison, the studio had just over 100 full-time employees when Hangar 13 shipped Mafia 3 in 2016. Like at this point, it's not even decimation. Like decimation is reducing by a 10th, right? This is annihilation. Like they got rid of over half of the team making these games. Like it's absolutely wild. But the reason I think it's important to understand this in the context of Mafia the Old Country is because it's important to understand that the team that's there today is largely different from the team that made Mafia 3, which may be seen as a really good thing from your perspective. But it's also very different from the team that, you know, was working on a bunch of these other projects, like even Mafia Definitive Edition. It's just totally different because they suffered these mass layoffs and then started working on Mafia the Old Country, and then they hired some more people on as part of that process. But what's also pretty telling is that this round of layoffs hit in May of 2022. And when those layoffs hit, a bunch of the head honchos at the company left, and new people were promoted and put in charge of the studio. And that's when they started working on The Old Country, which is important because that means that by the time the game launches, it will have been in production for almost exactly 3 years. And 3 years for a small team, it's not actually a lot of time. Like it really is not. It's, in the grand scheme of like AAA game development, it's kind of considered a rush job. Like it really is a tight time frame. Do you remember Senua's Saga Hellblade 2? Well, that game was made by Ninja Theory, and Ninja Theory was, of course, the studio that made the first Hellblade as well back in 2018, but they also worked on a couple of other things between when they announced Hellblade 2 and when they would actually start like full production on it as a team of like 80 something people. So they were a team of roughly similar size, it seems, to Hangar 13, and when they finished working on their live service game that flopped, Bleeding Edge, back in 2021 is when they ended support for it. They then spent 2.5 to 3 years putting together Hellblade 2, which ended up being all of like 4 to 5 hours long. And this brings us to the first point of concern for Mafia the Old Country, which is that a team of this size working for about 3 years historically is not able to make like a 15-20 hour game. It's just not what happens. The math doesn't math. So the expectation from a lot of people has been that the Old Country is going to be very, very short. This is actually something that my co-host, Joel Raptor, over on my podcast, the Free Roam podcast, he has said this from the moment that they fully revealed Mafia the Old Country, which is that he expects this game is going to be like 4 to 5 hours long total. And after he mentioned that to me, I'm really thinking he may not actually be that wrong, because they've been very cagey with the marketing for this game. They've really like not done much. They've done a couple of snippets that we'll talk about here in a minute, but they haven't done like a play test as far as I'm aware. They've not invited media to try the game. They haven't done any sort of huge, massive deep dive. They haven't answered the question of how long the game is, despite being asked it. So it's just something to be aware of. Like, yes, this game is being sold at $50, which I think is a much better price point than $70 or $80. But I think it's important to understand that at $50, this may still end up being a very, very short game. And this is just something you need to be aware of, because if you're somebody that likes cinematic games, the story may be compelling to you, but you need to be aware that if we're dealing with a really short game, even if it is $50, it may still be a bridge too far for some people. And I think this really does come down to personal preferences for some people. Like, some people are totally fine with paying full $70, $80 price points for a game that's 4 to 5 hours long, so long as the production quality is really, really high and they're okay with paying that. You may not be, and that's totally fine, but I want you to be aware of it, that historically teams of this size, when they're given this amount of time, the games are pretty short and small. So it doesn't mean it'll be bad. It just means that it may not be a day one purchase for you if that's something that you're concerned about. But having said that, it seems that after just about 2 years of development on the game, they announced it at Gamescom opening night live in August of 2024. They then had a full Game Awards trailer in December of that year, and now it's slated for launch in early August, which will be just about 3 years since they had the last round of crazy annihilative layoffs. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. But at this point, we've only gotten a few little tidbits about the game. We've gotten a narrative trailer, a story trailer, which I do think looks genuinely really good. The cutscenes are really beautiful. I think the voice acting looks stellar. The writing seems interesting. And as a game set in early 1900s Sicily, I think it looks awesome. In May of this year, we also got another gameplay trailer, which is what you're seeing on screen now. And this was just showcasing some really basic like stealth mechanics, some basic shooting. It looked visually very, very good. And it was really compelling, I think, in a lot of ways. A lot of people saw this and were like, this looks like Uncharted meets Mafia. I'm here for it. But it was still very edited. You know, it's still cut up, very, very short cuts. This is the longest like uncut sequence we have in the trailer. But besides this, you know, it's a lot of tight cuts and quick cuts going back and forth like this. So you never see a whole lot of uncut gameplay. But that would change. And in fact, it did just about a week ago, which is when IGN, of all people, posted this video. Now, IGN and I have a complicated relationship because I think personally, as a 19 million sub channel, the level of fidelity they are able to put out for their content is laughably terrible. Okay, how they still keep landing these exclusive marketing deals is beyond me. I understand they have like 19 million subscribers on their main channel and a lot of like website viewers and all of that. That's great. That's fine and dandy. But I do want to just point out that this is a like exclusive demonstration of the gameplay. And even if we cut it to like 4K and we go to just a random spot, this is so crazy over compressed that all of the grass is just chunky and blocky. And I know what you're thinking, Luke, this is probably just the footage they were provided. This isn't their fault. It's not their fault that the numbers disappear. It's so compressed. Look at this. Look at this. Their own logo is also over compressed. So they received footage from 2K or from Hangar 13, and then they exported it with their logo on, and then a little intro splash card, whatever. And they had the export setting set so terribly that it blurred out their own logo this badly. It's laughable. It's really, really bad. And so I did a segment on my stream talking about this that ended up getting shared a bunch. A bunch of other people talked about it, such as Mafia game videos over on X. Also did a bunch of side-by-side comparisons where you can see in the original, like fully high quality version of the trailer, you still see the tread on these like steps on the side of the car. In the IGN video, it's so over compressed that all of that detail disappears completely. And this is across the board. So their first uncut segment of gameplay footage is so over compressed from IGN that it makes it really difficult to judge the actual quality of the gameplay footage. So Mafia, the team behind it, listened to the feedback, understood it, and they actually posted their own unedited, uncompressed version of the same gameplay footage on their page, which I encourage you to check out yourself so that, for one, you kind of shove it to IGN, and two, so that you can see what the game actually will probably look like when you play it. So this is what we're going to look at. We're not going to look at the IGN one, just to be clear. But what they showcased in this 9-minute section of gameplay were some light edited sequences of like preparing for a mission where you go and select the weapons that you want. If we forward through this, you can see there's some light dialogue. There's then a driving sequence, which looks significantly better with the official version instead of the IGN poo-poo version. And there's a couple of interesting little tidbits here. For one, you know, we still have an open environment, but we also have a skip drive button prompted in the bottom right. This is something that other Mafia games have had before. Often if you're driving with an NPC, there will be dialogue going back and forth. But if there's like a section of the game where you're just driving by yourself, you can elect to skip that section if you just want to get straight to the mission, if you don't like driving through a beautiful Sicilian countryside for some reason. That being said, this is where I want to also stress something important, which is that Mafia, the old country, is trying something very, very different from Mafia 3, which is that they are not going open world slop on this game. And instead, their goal is to give you a linear narrative experience, first and foremost, similar to Mafia 1 / Definitive Edition most clearly. And what I think in practice this will mean is exactly what you're seeing. I'm guessing most of the POIs you see on screen, you will have missions take place within. I don't think there will be much like left to waste in this map and in this environment. But I think that typically it's going to be drive to this location. There might be a couple of like little hidden collectibles or something here and there, but this is not going to be a game where like you're having Rockstar-esque dynamic events or random AI patrols and things. There's no wanted system. It's not that kind of game. That's not what they're trying to do, which for me, I actually like. I think that's better than doing an open world poorly. You know, I think if you're going to do something poorly, sometimes it's better just to not do it at all. So I'm okay with that as somebody that's played a lot of Mafia games in my time, you know, all 3 of them. So I think this is better. That being said, we do get a couple of looks at some cutscenes, and this is where some people have started to point out some key little tidbits. For one, there are a couple of little bits in here where we can see frames dropping right here as the camera's panning back. It also has an Unreal Engine 5 sort of weird eccentricity, which is that when it switches cameras, sometimes it holds on to that for a frame extra. So there's like a slight delay when it swaps cameras. It's tough to see. You might not even see it if your eye isn't looking for it, but it's also there. It does have really smooth transitions from cutscene to gameplay where it's seamless, which I also appreciate. But this also is when people started doing side-by-side comparisons to the teaser trailer, as I alluded to earlier. This was also clipped by Mafia game videos, but also he gives credit originally to Basic I'm Simon from the subreddit who originally did the side-by-side. And as you can see, this is the same scene in the teaser trailer versus in the final like gameplay video that IGN posted that they would eventually post their own version of. And Some people are saying that this is just like a stylistic difference. I think to me, you know, the hair change is stylistic. I agree. They changed the hairstyle. I don't know why. Maybe this is something even in the game, like you can go kind of like in Red Dead where you go and pomade your hair if you want, or maybe you can go and you can choose some basic customizations like outfits or something. I don't know. Maybe that's why the hair is different. Who knows? But the hair is different. That's a stylistic thing. But I do think that there are a couple of little things here. You can see the light setup is similar, though not identical. In this case, it looks like it's happening over a sunset. The light is very warm, whereas in this case, it's a very soft shadow that's casting very light shading all over the face. It's a very different thing. And I also feel like the quality of like the eyebrows are different. But again, this is the problem with IGN doing this, is that when it's over compressed, you can't really do one-to-one comparisons like hair strands, because it may just be IGN's over compressing the video. Like you can't judge texture quality or anything because it's IGN. So anyway, I'm sorry. It just pisses me off that they have 19 million subscribers and they can't render at like high settings. Their version of iMovie must be pirated or something. You can't even pirate it. I don't even know how they do it. Like, it's just anyway. I am getting high blood pressure from IGN. I need to stop. It's driving me crazy. Anyway, this is, in my view, I think a significant change. Even just the shape of the eyes and like some of the facial animation seems to be like have been slightly changed. So I don't know. I do feel like this is approaching downgrade. I think it's beyond just a stylistic change. Does it look bad now? I don't personally think so. I think it looks good. It's certainly passable, but I do think this looks way better personally. That's just me. And this isn't the only one. There's this other little segment that they clipped where it's the same sequence, same shot. You can see, again, the light tone has changed. They've changed the setup of the scene just slightly. So in this case, it looks like the light is much warmer. It's coming from a candle or something, or a lantern. Whereas in this case, it's just very soft shadows with a backlight. This seems more stylistically changed than like an obvious downgrade. Maybe you could say that the animation again has taken a little step down, but I really don't know. It's tough to tell. So with that, I'll just leave it up to you. This is not like a Watch Dogs downgrade like back in the day, but I do think it's significantly different, and I personally prefer the original trailer shots more than I prefer the final shot that they showed us in the gameplay preview. That's just my preference though, so just saying. I guess let me know in the comments if you think that it looks better now or worse now, because I have heard some people in chat when we talked about this on stream saying they prefer the new look over the old look. So I don't know, let me know. But having said that, we did get a look at some gameplay sequences where like there's some basic stealth, and this seems pretty straightforward. There are some interesting little ideas here. You do get a prompt to choke somebody out or slash their neck and kill them instantly. And there's also a prompt right there to loot their body for like sharpening stones or throwables, and also to move their body and drag it into cover or out of the way of a patrol or something. So I could see there being really tough, like high level stealth challenges towards the end of the game where you have to grab bodies, move them, hide them from patrols and things, which I personally really like. But if you watch this entire thing, you're probably gonna look at it and be like, yeah, it looks fine. And I think that's Mafia. You know, it's why I said again earlier, the example of like the fast food restaurant. The burger can still be good. It's not going to blow you away. Like, it's not going to be world-class stealth. It's not going to be anything that like really shakes or moves the foundations of the earth, but it's going to be good enough for you to play the game, have something engaging while you play mainly for the story. I will say though, this little section with the grenade, I think this was just like this one needs a little work. And again, I'm saying this with love, peace and love, as somebody that likes Mafia games. Like, come on. Them's is some Star Wars Outlaws looking explosions. I'm sorry, I gotta say it. Just doesn't look that good. Don't look that good. But you can see here there's some basic shooting, and it's passable. Again, it gets the job done, and I think that's the point. But this just reiterates further and further, I think, the thing that's going to make or break Mafia the Old Country, which is just going to be the story. Like, the gameplay's passable. There doesn't really seem to be anything crazy novel or new. There really don't seem to be any new mechanics or anything we've not seen before. It feels in many, many ways like a generic third-person cover-based shooter with some stealth mechanics, because that's basically what it is. But what makes Mafia truly unique are the stories. It's the world. It's the like vocal performances. It's all of that. And that's where I think they have a chance to really blow people away and stand on their own and make this game worth getting. But that's just something we won't be able to tell until we play the game and review it and you try it for yourself. And that's tricky because, you know, in some cases we look at games and before they even launch, we can tell pretty much everything that it's about. We know what it's going to be. Like with Mind's Eye, everybody could see that coming from a mile away. But in this case, I think it's going to really just come down to how good the story is. And I think the length of it will also be important as well. I mean, I think if this game is only 4 hours long, that unfortunately is a major ding against it, unless it's some sort of crazy impressive narrative and cinematic masterpiece, which maybe it is, but I don't know. Time will tell. The cutscenes still look really good though. Again, there are some frame drops and stutters here and there. It makes me worried a little bit about overall performance, but again, we'll just have to see. We'll have to see. Okay, fam. So I planned on this video going live this morning when I'm filming this on July 14th, but IGN just posted a video where they got access to the game and did a 3-hour preview of it that they posted onto their YouTube channel. And to their credit, the quality is significantly better in this video than in the last one. They show a bunch of different like little snippets of gameplay. And honestly, I think they might even like show a little too much, in my humble opinion. Like they spoil a good amount of stuff in here, but I think it's probably for the best, you know, because a lot of the questions around this game right now are about length or about scope and scale, and they answer a good amount of those things in this preview. So for example, they say that they played 3 hours of the game, roughly, close to it at least. And in that sequence, they played through 3 chapters of the game. And all of the chapters they played through were largely like tutorial sections, teaching you how the stealth systems work, teaching you the relationships between you and the Dawn, and then establishing the relationship between you and the love interest Isabella. And it sounds like it's basically all early Act 1 stuff. And so if 3 chapters took 3 hours and it's all like prologue to intro level stuff, it suggests that this game is a good bit longer than like 5 to 6 hours, and that they actually might be able to make that like 12 to 15 hour mark pretty comfortably. Now it's going to be slower. There's going to be sequences like this where you're riding on horseback as you go to a location for the gameplay sequence to play out. But overall, the preview is very, very positive and describes a gameplay system that is much more akin to Mafia, the definitive edition of the first game, versus like Mafia 3 or even Mafia 2. Some people are going to love it, but you know, some people might find it a little slow paced and too narrative, but it really does seem like this preview left the IGN people quite satisfied and impressed with what they had to offer, which is good to see because I mean, up until this point, we really had not seen a whole lot of the game. And so to see this one preview, there's only one, but to see this preview come out is encouraging. And there are little details to be appreciated. Like right there, you just saw it, where when Enzo gets injured, you put a bandage on your arm. And if you watch his right arm, he puts the bandage on, wraps it up, and it stays on for the rest of the gameplay sequence, similar to Ellie in The Last of Us Part 2, which I think is a really cool little touch to have. It's nothing that's going to like blow your mind. It's gameplay that's reminiscent of a lot of other games, and there's nothing really too revolutionary here, or even revolutionary period. But I think what they do have here is just a robust enough gameplay system to get you from mission to mission so that you can enjoy the story, which is where this game will excel. And as you can see, there's little tidbits that are pretty intense, cutting off fingers and doing classic mafioso things. It seems quite interesting, and I'm excited. So I was gonna put this video out and just be like, oh, well, we missed the preview, whatever. But I was like, no, we got to talk about it. We looked at it on stream and there's enough here to sink our teeth into. So I felt like I had to mention it. But overall, I'm feeling much better about the game after seeing this preview from IGN, honestly. It still has some of the telltale signs of an Unreal Engine game. There's still a good amount of stuttering. There's some stuttering specifically when camera angles change, where it holds on to the previous frame for a frame or two, or the new frame for a frame or two. It's just a little jarring. They also are only showing gameplay footage from a high-end PC running at 4K 60. And so as far as I know, we still have not seen what the game will look like running on a like base PS5, for example. So that's a big question mark for me. But other than performance concerns, I think the game looks really, really solid, and I'm excited to see what they've got for it. But performance, I think, is going to be a point of concern and confusion. So I hope that they can clear that up, maybe give some clearer stats on what like the PS4 or rather PS5 version is going to look like, so that we have something to work with. But overall, after this preview, I'm more excited than I was before, which is a good thing. good. It's kind of the point of a preview. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you for watching and hanging out with me. Again, if you want to hang out with me when this stuff drops live, go check out my second channel, Luke Simmons Live, linked in the link tree and all of that. Like I said, they just dropped the preview and we watched it live on stream and reacted to it. So it's a great chance to kind of get together and talk about this stuff the second that it drops. It's a really good time over there. So recommend you do that. But other than that, thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. I can't wait to see more about Mafia. Yeah, I'm excited to see more. And let me know if you are as well. And also, I want to know legitimately in the comments, what hour range would you be comfortable playing for $50? Like, are you okay if this is only 8 hours long, or does it need to hit 12 hours or 15 or 20? Like, what's the threshold for you based on the quality you're seeing? Like, if they can deliver 10 hours of this or 15 hours of this, like, where's that cutoff for you where you go, nah, I'll wait for a sale? Let me know, because I'm genuinely curious. But anyway, thanks for watching. I love you all dearly, and I'll see you in the next video. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.